Hello and welcome to today's video. So I've recently got out some of my most valuable vintage Penguin books, and some of them were already in comic bags, but they weren't in very good comic bags. So I've unwrapped them. I brought down some brand new comic bags to pop them in. And I just thought I'd show you my process of bagging my rarer paperbacks before I put them back into the collection. So what I'm going to do, because these are super valuable, I'm just going to run my toothbrush across the top there, because before these go into the bags, I want them basically as good as possible. This is a particularly rare Penguin book, and I just want to make sure before I pop it into its bag that there's no turned over corners like there is this on this back page here. But some of these, as we'll see in a minute, are super fragile, so I need to be very careful. But that one looks good enough to do there. So now there's a couple of ways I can do this, because these bags will fit comics and smaller magazines. I could pop them in this way round, like so, and bag them that way, which is going to protect it. It's going to do the business, which is all that's really required. But this bag is a bit too big, so what I think I'm going to have to do is just get some scissors, and I'm going to cut this bag down there just to sort of keep it so it's not wrapped around the book. So I'm just going to go grab my scissors. Here they are. So I'm not sure if you've caught my video yet, the most valuable vintage Penguin books, but this particular one that we're looking at here is very rare. It's probably the most valuable vintage penguin that I own, only because there's just so few of them around. So it really does deserve to be in a plastic wrap, just to protect it more than anything. So it's not too bad. A little skew whiff, I suppose, but I mean, I know you can get dedicated paperback bags, and a few people have suggested a couple of brands to try, and I may well do that at some point, but that's okay. So I'll just there's a little bit of green inside that one, and it really annoys me, so I'm going to take these off. I'm going to have another crack at this one. Don't know what it was, but like a little bit of the cover, like a little fleck of paper it's got in there. Apart from that, it's okay, so let's try that again. There we are. And I'm going to fold the bottom bit over. And I've received books in comic bags before, or paperback bags from dealers. I'm really not impressed with them. I don't know what it is about them, but they just don't seem that great. So until we get the cases, so rare Star Wars figures, for example, have got dedicated plastic cases that you could stick a book in, or you stick the figure in, and you slide it in and it just slots it in place. It keeps the cover flat, and that's how these Star Wars cases work. And I have suggested to the chap who brings them over if he could do some ones for rare paperbacks. I'd say he'd have a ready market of people ready to put their rare books in these beautiful like display cases. They could be stood up, then they could be on display, but most of all it protects them from any dirt. So I'm absolutely happy with that. The only thing that I'm going to do at the end of this, because I've got a few more to go through, and most of them are a lot more delicate than that, is I'm going to put one of my weights on top of it, and I'm just going to leave it for a few days, and that will just get all the air out of it, and it'll be ready to go in into the collection. So that's number one. This one here, you see, it's a real old real old copy, very, very fragile. So I just want to keep it in as good a condition as possible. And if this was on the shelf loose, it would potentially get quite beaten up or damaged. So I'm just going to have a crack at cutting this bag here before I stick the book in. See if it's a little bit easier to cut, and see if I do a better job of it. So this is where I wish I had a guillotine. I could just get them to the right size. Okay, so I think that's going to be all right. Yes, it's skew whiff as anything, but I don't think it's going to matter too much once the book's in there. The main thing is it's all very super, super scarce book. I mean, as I said, it's not even got a back cover, so it's not like it's a mega valuable one, although it is particularly scarce in the world of penguins, and there's not many copies even in existence of this one. So I'm just happy to have a copy in any condition, really. And to be honest, with the penguins that I'm missing now, which is probably about half a dozen of the first 1,000 in first edition, I'll just take them in any shape, just to say I've got them all, really, you know. And that one is certainly, you know, been in the battle, shall we say. I'm never going to believe it, but this one's got a bit of, somehow got a bit of dust and fluff in the top as well. We'll try take 2 on that one. It's got a little layer of dust in the top. Now I am in the process on my other channel of cleaning my vintage penguins. I thought this one had been done. Evidently it hasn't, because it had left that bit of dust along the top. I think the rest of it's okay. Considering it hasn't even got a back cover, it's not too bad, all things considered. Let's slide it in now. Take 2, as it were. There we are. I was able to save the tape in place. Get some of the air out of there. There we are. It's just going to protect it when it's on the shelf more than anything. This next one's a real beauty, so it deserves the protection. Once again, we'll just cut the comic bag here. See if I can get a straighter cut this time. That's looking a bit better. Now this one's a real rarity, but it's also in super nice condition. Very, very pleased with this one. So I don't think it's going to need any attention, except just a little bit of along the top. Little light dust along the top. But that's a little beauty, that one. Compared to the other one as well. Very valuable book. There we are. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, that's not how I bag my my books rather, or if there's a brand that you know which you can find in the UK which will do the trick better than what I'm having to do here and makes the books look great as well, then believe me, I'm all ears. I'd like to see it. There we are. That'll do for now. They're not my light bags. They don't bring the covers out, but they are going to give it that level of protection that these books need whilst they're on the shelf because of their age. Getting a bit of a production line going there. But since I've had my channel, people say, "Oh, why don't you bag all your books?" And it's like, I ain't got another year spare to do it. You know what I mean? But these particular ones have been out recently because, as I said, they've been identified as the most valuable penguins in my collection. So at the very least, I ought to give them the benefit of a nice bag. To keep them as protected as possible. Whilst they're on the shelf. That's nice. It keeps it protected, doesn't it? Another very, very scarce little penguin. Now these two I'm going to just pop in back to back because it's the only two that I've got, and they're both pretty scarce. These are for the Forces book club. This one I think's got a detached cover. I mean, they're ridiculously scarce, these, and very, very fragile. These were published during the height of the Blitz. Amazing that they even got published at all, to be honest. So copies generally don't turn up in great condition. There are collectors, at least 2 or 3 collectors with a fair old run of these Forces book clubs, but I've only got the 2. And there's 120 to collect, and I've never really tried to pick them up ever. Simply because it's an impossibility. I don't know anyone who's got a full set. I don't even know if they've even all been pictured. I think there's some that still have yet to be pictured, but I don't know for sure. Penguins certainly don't have them in their archive. They're not in the British Museum. They are just genuinely difficult books to track down. The 2 that I got for... Well, the first one, which we'll have a look at in a minute, I paid about 5 or 4 when I first started collecting penguins. And this one I think I got very reasonably priced, about maybe £15. I've seen them sell for a few hundred for certain ones. But these are the 2 that I've got. So that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get that. And then this is the one I got years ago when I first started collecting penguins. You see it's in a right old state. Very, very rare, these, and you know, I always keep my eyes peeled, but there's one on eBay at the moment. It's £100. It's from one of the collectors who's got a great run of them, and I think he's advertising it's £100, or I think he said he's got 15 spare, so he's got an incredible collection, and he's willing to trade 3 of his spares for 1 that he's not got. So that's a pretty good trade, isn't it? Alright. But they're just so scarce. That unless you came across a run of like 50 or something to get you started, honestly, I probably wouldn't even consider it. There was a chap a few years back who I bought a couple of penguins off, and he said he had a near complete set that he was willing to let go for a few £1,000s. And I said, yeah, all right. let's have it then. But I just don't know if that was in the realms of he was having a fast one or trying to pull a fast one. Because I said, look, for that sort of money, I'll come up and have a look at them. I don't care where you are. I'm not going to just send $3,000 in the post or whatever it was. It was something like that. But it would have been worth it, monetarily wise. And, nothing ever came of it. But I did have some other real rare books off him. So I'm not saying he never had them, but maybe he sold them to someone else. Or maybe he's still got them, I don't know. But there we are. So that's my 2 Forces Book Club titles, and they do look much better. And I feel happier now that they're in the bags. And that's going to go for the same for the next 2 we're going to do, which is I've got 2 Prisoner of War releases. So these were produced for people who were caught overseas. There we are, the Prisoner of War Book Service during the Second World War. Once again, super rare books, incredibly fragile. You have to think these were published during the Blitz. They've managed to be sent to Europe. They've been around the prisoner of war camps, read to death probably, and have somehow managed to get back to Britain. So the fact that they exist at all is, to be honest, amazing. So I'm just going to pop those back to back. I will just give them a very light dust off because they are actually quite dusty in the top there. Like that. Very scarce indeed. Not massively valuable, the Prisoner of War books, but they are just rare. There's not many of them around, and for that reason alone, I've enjoyed collecting them. Let's put it that way. But I wouldn't once again ever attempt to try and get them all because they just don't turn up very often. But like any long-term Penguin collector has probably got a few in their collection, like me as an example, and I'm more than happy to have. Just to say I got the odd 1 or 2 is absolutely cool. So I'm going to put them in back to back as well. Not even the same size, but they are what they are. There we are. That's okay. It's nice and flat. So when I've done all these books, I've got a house brick, and it's wrapped up in paper. I'm waiting for the wife to put a cloth over it so I can use it as a weight, but I can use it as a weight. But once these are done, I'm going to put them all in a nice stack, pop the brick on top, and it will just, over time, over a couple of days, get the last bits of air out of these so that they'll slide back into the collection without too much incident. There we are, because there's a bit of air trapped in there at the moment, but with some weight on, that'll push that out. We've just got a few more to do. So this is an infamous expensive book, Biggles Flies Again, very rare and sought after Penguin. I don't know how rare it is. I mean, on eBay you see maybe one every year or a year and a half. The last one went for £500, and it was a nice copy. It was as good as the one I've got. I've had that one for about 15 years. The wife got it for me, actually. There was one on eBay, and it was finishing on like a Tuesday morning or something like that. And we got it for like £102, something like that. I, for one, was very pleased. It was probably a bit more than that. It was probably more like about 18 years ago, but still very nice to get such a key book, and a real rarity. Bit of spotting along the top, but I've never actually cleaned this, but It's a genuinely nice copy of this one, of a book which, you know, is sought after by Penguin collectors and W.E. Johns Biggles collectors, of course. It's a very unusual choice to have as part of the main Penguin series. You'd think it would have just been a puffin, wouldn't you? But there you go. And you have to wonder if they'd have published it as a puffin, would it have been as sought after as it is today? I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's a wartime Biggles book, and it's a real collectible. Right, just a handful more to do. So these aren't taking as long as I thought, which is good news. So the next one is this one, which is Murder at the Admiralty. Now this is one which, if you have a look at the spine there, it's a replacement spine. So when I bought this one off eBay, it was falling to bits basically, and I've done a repair job on it. And I had a friend of mine who's a book designer, and he was able to fashion a fake spine, which I thought was super cool. I couldn't believe he did it. I scanned one of my better penguins from the period, and he just did it in the same style. Really, really clever. And then I cut it down and I put it on and bound the book together basically. So it was just a bit before I started doing my YouTube videos, because else I would have recorded the process of bringing such a rare penguin book back to life basically. But you see it's very, very fragile there on the front. So that's why this one definitely needs to be in a bag. So that's the area of doom. It's really, really delicate. So I'm just going to slide it in very carefully. There we are. And this will just keep it in place and stop it getting any worse. Because it is such a little rarity. There we are. The level of protection that's now got is massive compared to the delicateness, the tiny chips, and you need to look at it and another bit had fallen off, you know, so brilliant stuff. Okay, just a couple more left to do. The next one is this Agatha Christie, so this is Penguin book number 6. I've not got a dust wrappered copy, but this is still a very, very nice copy. I did clean this one recently in one of my repair videos, so I'm going to that one's basically all set to go straight into a bag. I'm going to do a slightly bigger bag because it's a slightly thicker book. Most of these that we've seen today have been published during the war, so the pages are thin because of the paper rationing and the time that they were printed, whereas this one was a pre-war title from 1935 and is much more robust at a time when such things as paper rationing did not concern British publishers. They were publishing books that you wouldn't believe. And there was particularly for paperbacks, there was a huge market for reading back then. Obviously prior to TV, but we did have the cinema back then. But once again, this is going to give this one the level of protection that, to be honest, it does deserve. Don't want to leave it naked. It's just too valuable a book for that. About £250 for that one, and double that if it was in a wrapper. That's cool. And then the last one we've got is this one. It's called The Second Shot by Anthony Berkley. It's another pretty rare one, Penguin 409. It's got all the hallmarks of being a rarity, with it being a crime title, published during the war. It's just all round scarce. So I'll gently do this top edge here. Not that it's making much difference, but there may be some invisible dust and dirt which has accumulated. Let's just have a quick flick through, see if there's any pages turned over. Doesn't appear to be. It's just an all-round scarce book, that one, but it's the last one we got to do today. So we'll just cut this comic bag down. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me bag up some of my rare books. People say, oh, he never bags his books. Well, you've seen it in the flesh. I think this will do for now on these, but I'd certainly like a better way to protect my rarest books. And I think the plastic case idea, which is, what the Star Wars or the action figure market use, it's fantastic. I'd love that to be something that we could bring to rare vintage paperbacks, because there's certainly some very, very expensive books out there which would warrant it. So all I'm going to do with these now, because you can sort of see they're not lying flat, because they've got, particularly when we've got a few, you see they're sliding around a bit because they've got air in them. That's absolutely fine. I'm just going to get my house brick on these, put them against a corner, so they're in spot, put some weight on them, and over the next 2-3 days the air will just shh and they'll be nice and flat. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed that video of me bagging my books and talking about some of these rare penguins. Do leave a comment. Tell me what you do with your books. I'd love to know. Do you bag your rarities, or do you just leave them on the shelf like I used to without any protection at all? I'd be very, very interested. But they do look great, don't they? Thanks very much for watching today then, and I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.